Something strange happened in American kitchens during the 1970s. Dishes that once held families together suddenly vanished, almost like they were erased from the dinner table on purpose. But today, we're unlocking those lost flavors again. And trust me, you're about to see meals that kept millions alive, fed entire neighborhoods, and carried the stories of struggle and love in every bite. Hey there, welcome to America's Lost Recipes. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps this little nostalgic community grow. And to all my returning viewers, seriously, thank you. You're the heart of this channel. Before we dive in, tell me something. What was the most comforting meal of your childhood? And where in the world are you watching from today? Drop your answers and any food suggestions in the comments. I read every message with love, and I always try my best to reply. Let's begin this journey into the forgotten meals of the 1970s. Hamburger gravy over bread. This one might sound simple, but its story runs deep. In the economic squeeze of the 1970s, hamburger gravy over bread became a lifeline for families trying to stretch every ounce of food they had. It wasn't fancy, but it carried the kind of warmth that made a cold evening feel safe. Ground beef was browned with onions, dusted with flour, and simmered in milk or broth until it turned into a silky gravy. Then it was poured over day-old bread, the kind that people kept in a tin box to avoid waste. According to the 1974 edition of the University of Minnesota Home Economics Archive, this dish appeared in multiple family budget guides, recommended for its high satiety value and minimal ingredient reliance, something that speaks volumes about how families navigated inflation and rising food costs. When people talk about poor man meals, this is the exact flavor they remember: comforting, filling, and made with love even when money was tight. Moms and grandmas often added their own tiny twists: a pinch of paprika, leftover peas, or even just black pepper cracked fresh over the top. It wasn't about luxury, it was about making sure everyone ate together, no matter how tough things got. This dish doesn't look dramatic, but it carries one of the strongest emotional footprints of 1970s kitchen life. Poor man's macaroni and tomatoes was born from the shelves of families who had nothing but canned goods, a bag of elbow pasta, and hoped that tomorrow would be a little easier. Elbow macaroni was boiled until soft, then folded into stewed tomatoes that simmered with a little salt, pepper, and, when luck allowed, a pat of margarine. That tiny bit of fat made the whole pot taste richer, fuller, almost like a hug on a plate. In the 1971 Household Resource Management papers from Ohio State University, researchers noted that this dish was one of the most repeated budget meals among working-class households, particularly during months when paychecks barely stretched to rent and utilities. It wasn't glamorous, but it delivered warmth, carbs, and comfort for under $1. You'd often see families adding whatever scraps they had: a handful of corn, leftover onions, or even a sprinkle of dried herbs from the cupboard. Kids who grew up eating this still remember the smell: slightly tangy, slightly sweet, and instantly calming. It was the kind of food you didn't judge, you just appreciated, because it kept everyone full during some of America's toughest years. Here's a dish that could make or break dinner tables in the 1970s: liver and onions with mashed potatoes. To modern eyes, liver might seem intimidating, even unappealing, but back then, it was a lifeline. Liver was inexpensive, packed with iron, and stretched far enough to feed an entire family when budgets were tight. Onions were sliced thick, fried until caramelized, and layered over pan-seared liver, adding sweetness and a comforting aroma that filled the kitchen. Mashed potatoes, whipped with a little margarine or milk, completed the plate, making each bite a combination of earthy, savory, and creamy textures that felt almost indulgent in a time of scarcity. According to the 1975 American Home Economics Association Cookbook Collection, liver dinners were recommended as nutrient-rich, cost-effective meals that satisfy both palate and pocketbook. Families often got creative: a dash of paprika, leftover gravy from roast nights, or a side of pickled vegetables could elevate the humble dish into something celebratory without spending extra money. This meal tells a story beyond taste. It's about parents making sacrifices, kids learning to appreciate simple flavors, and kitchens smelling like love, resourcefulness, and resilience. For many, the scent of frying onions over liver still brings back memories of a mother quietly working to ensure no one went hungry. Imagine a pot simmering on a stovetop, the aroma of smoky bacon intertwining with earthy beans, filling a modest kitchen with warmth and hope. That was bean and bacon soup in the 1970s. A dish born from necessity but remembered for its comforting, hearty flavors. Dried beans, often soaked overnight, became tender and creamy when cooked slowly with onions, garlic, and small strips of bacon. Families stretched this simple concoction over several meals, pairing it with whatever bread they had on hand, making sure every ounce counted. It was inexpensive, filling, and nourishing, a true lifeline during lean months. The 1973 University of Wisconsin Extension Guide to Family Meals highlights that bean-based soups were economical, protein-rich, and flexible enough to use leftover ingredients, cementing their place in American kitchens during inflation and economic hardship. Many households added a pinch of herbs, a dash of hot sauce, or a spoonful of rendered bacon fat to enhance flavor, proving that even the simplest ingredients could be transformed with care and creativity. Bean and bacon soup was more than food, it was a ritual. Families gathered around steaming bowls, sharing stories, laughter, and the quiet satisfaction of a meal that nurtured both body and soul. For those who lived through it, no can soup ever tasted the same again. Few dishes defined thrift and comfort better than the tuna noodle casserole of the 1970s. In many households, canned tuna was a staple, and paired with elbow macaroni, cream of mushroom soup, and a crunchy topping of breadcrumbs or crushed crackers, it became a full meal that could feed a family on a shoestring budget. The beauty of this dish wasn't just its affordability, it was the way it brought families together. Even kids who weren't usually adventurous with food would dig into a bubbling, golden casserole straight from the oven, enjoying the creamy texture and savory flavor that seemed almost luxurious compared to plain boiled pasta. According to the 1976 Cornell Cooperative Extension Family Meal Studies, tuna noodle casserole was considered a practical, filling, and universally accepted meal, making it a consistent favorite in both urban and rural kitchens. Many households added their own twists, leftover vegetables, a sprinkling of cheddar, or even a hint of paprika to give it color and warmth. What made this dish unforgettable wasn't only the taste, it was the memories. The aroma filling the home, the golden crust bubbling with cheese, and the knowledge that even on tight budgets, families could gather, share, and enjoy something nourishing, simple, and truly comforting. Few meals from the 1970s carried as much charm and practicality as the sloppy joe. Ground beef, onions, ketchup, a touch of mustard, and a hint of brown sugar transformed into a thick, messy sauce that was spooned generously onto soft hamburger buns. It wasn't fancy, but it was filling, inexpensive, and loved by kids and adults alike. The joy wasn't only in the taste, it was in the playful mess of it, the sticky fingers, and the laughter that often accompanied dinner. For many households, a plate of sloppy joes was a small victory in feeding a family on a tight budget without sacrificing flavor or fun. In the 1975 American Culinary Federation Home Economics Collection, sloppy joes were listed as a nutrient-sensible, low-cost family meal, praised for their adaptability. Families often got creative, adding chopped bell peppers, a dash of Worcestershire sauce, or even a few leftover veggies to stretch the dish further. Despite its simplicity, the meal carried a sense of togetherness and comfort, making it a staple on many kitchen tables. Even decades later, people remember the tangy sweet sauce and soft buns with a nostalgic grin. Sloppy joes weren't just a dinner, they were a celebration of resourcefulness, love, and the ability to make something extraordinary from humble ingredients. It might surprise some today, but fried bologna sandwiches were a beloved staple in many 1970s kitchens. Bologna, cheap, widely available and shelf-stable, became a versatile protein when sliced thick, fried until slightly crisp on the edges, and layered between soft white bread, often with a swipe of mustard or mayonnaise. The sizzle of the meat hitting the hot skillet was the soundtrack of countless homes, signaling dinner was ready. For families struggling to make ends meet, it was a simple yet satisfying way to serve a filling meal without stretching the budget. In the 1972 Pennsylvania State University Home Management Handbook, fried bologna sandwiches were recommended for affordable family meals that maximize flavor with minimal preparation, a reflection of the ingenuity required in low-income households. Sometimes, leftover cheese, pickles, or even onions were added, creating small variations that felt special to the kids and adults eating them. This sandwich wasn't just cheap, it was comforting. The warm, greasy edges, the soft bread, and the aroma that filled kitchens made it a small but memorable pleasure. Even decades later, people remember this humble sandwich with nostalgia, a symbol of creative resourcefulness in American homes during challenging times. Open-faced meatloaf sandwiches were a clever solution to feed families during the financially tight 1970s, turning leftover dinner into a new, satisfying meal. Slices of hearty meatloaf, often made from ground beef mixed with breadcrumbs and onions, were placed on thick slices of bread and topped with gravy or a tomato-based sauce. Served warm, these sandwiches were filling, comforting, and easy to prepare in large quantities, perfect for households where every bite counted. It was a way to honor the original dinner while creating something slightly different that could stretch across lunches or casual dinners. According to the 1974 University of Minnesota Extension Service Family Food Guides, open-faced sandwiches like this were celebrated for economizing both ingredients and effort while providing complete meals, highlighting the ingenuity of American homemakers who had to balance limited budgets with family satisfaction. Sometimes, a sprinkle of leftover vegetables or shredded cheese was added to elevate the meal, transforming yesterday's dinner into today's comfort food. These sandwiches weren't just practical, they were emotional anchors. Families gathered around kitchens filled with the aroma of warm meatloaf and gravy, sharing stories and laughter while turning simple ingredients into memories that lasted long after the last bite. Here's a dish that perfectly captures 1970s ingenuity: tuna and potato patties. When canned tuna and leftover mashed potatoes were all a household had, creative cooks turned them into crispy, golden patties that could be pan-fried with just a little oil. Mixed with breadcrumbs, onions, and a pinch of seasoning, these patties were inexpensive, filling, and satisfying, making them a favorite for budget-conscious families. Kids loved them for their crunchy exterior and soft, savory inside, while parents loved that a single batch could feed multiple meals. The 1973 Cornell Cooperative Extension Guide to Family Nutrition mentions tuna patties as an economical, protein-rich dish ideal for households aiming to maximize nutrition while minimizing cost. Families often added whatever extras were available: carrots, peas, or even small bits of leftover cheese, to give the patties extra flavor and substance. The simplicity of the ingredients belied the care and creativity that went into every pan-fried patty, turning humble pantry staples into a beloved family meal. Tuna and potato patties weren't just food, they were a testament to resourcefulness. Even decades later, people who grew up with them recall the comforting aroma in the kitchen, the satisfying crunch, and the quiet pride of making something delicious from almost nothing, a true symbol of 1970s culinary ingenuity. It's hard to overstate how much goulash meant to American families during the 1970s. This humble, one-pot wonder was more than just a meal. It was a lifeline on evenings when budgets were tight, time was short, and kids were hungry. At its core, goulash combined inexpensive ground beef, elbow macaroni, diced tomatoes, onions, and a mix of pantry spices, simmered together until the flavors melded into a thick, comforting stew. Some families added a handful of green peppers, a dash of Worcestershire sauce, or even leftover cheese to stretch the flavor and make the dish feel like a little celebration despite tight resources. The beauty of goulash lay in its simplicity, yet it carried a warmth and heartiness that transcended its humble ingredients. According to the 1975 American Home Economics Association Family Meal Guides, goulash was praised for being cost-efficient, nutritious, and flexible, and it became a staple in countless kitchens across the Midwest and Northeast. It could feed a family of 4 for just a few dollars, and leftovers often lasted for 2 days, making it perfect for working parents or families balancing school, chores, and household duties. The recipe's adaptability meant it could reflect whatever ingredients were available: canned vegetables, leftover meat, or a sprinkle of whatever cheese remained in the fridge. What made goulash unforgettable wasn't just the taste, it was the emotional imprint it left. The rich tomato aroma filling kitchens, the bubbling pot warming the stove, and the way families gathered around the table, scraping every bit from the pan, fostered a sense of togetherness and comfort. Goulash wasn't gourmet. It didn't need to be. It was about resilience, love, and turning humble ingredients into memories that stayed long after the last bite. Imagine the smell of a simmering pot of chicken and dumplings filling a small 1970s kitchen, the rich aroma of tender chicken, soft vegetables, and pillowy dumplings floating in a savory broth. For many American families, this dish was a symbol of warmth, care, and resourcefulness. It wasn't a meal you made when you had extra money, it was a meal you made when you had to make every ingredient count. A whole chicken, often bought on sale or raised in a backyard coop, was boiled until the meat fell off the bones. The broth became the base for dumplings made from simple flour, water, and a pinch of salt. Vegetables like carrots, onions, and potatoes were added when available, making the dish stretch to feed an entire family. According to the 1974 University of Georgia Cooperative Extension Home Economics Guides, chicken and dumplings were an economical, nourishing, and versatile meal ideal for family sustenance during lean times. The recipe's simplicity allowed it to be customized. Some families added herbs from their gardens, others enriched it with a bit of leftover milk or butter, transforming humble pantry staples into a dish that felt indulgent. Beyond its practicality, the dish carried emotional weight. Children who came home from school to its aroma often felt an immediate sense of comfort, safety, and love. Parents knew that a steaming pot of chicken and dumplings meant their family was cared for, even when times were hard. Chicken and dumplings weren't just food, they were memories molded in kitchens across America, the embodiment of love, patience, and creativity. Every tender dumpling and every spoonful of broth represented the dedication of those who turned scarce resources into something remarkable, nourishing not just the body, but the spirit of families who cherished every bite. Slab bacon and fried potatoes might seem like a simple, even rough meal to some, but in the kitchens of the 1970s, it was a trusted classic. Families stretched every bit of meat and potato to feed hungry mouths, turning what many might consider humble ingredients into a hearty, satisfying plate. Thick-cut slab bacon was sliced, fried until the edges curled and crisped, releasing smoky, savory aromas that seemed to warm the entire house. Meanwhile, potatoes, often left over from previous meals or bought in bulk, were chopped, pan-fried in the rendered bacon fat, and seasoned with salt, pepper, and sometimes a sprinkle of paprika for color. The combination was not only filling but comforting, embodying the ingenuity of families trying to make the most of limited resources. According to the 1972 University of Minnesota Extension Guide on Economical Family Meals, bacon and potatoes were highlighted as highly versatile, protein and carbohydrate-rich ingredients that could be stretched to feed large households efficiently. Many families personalized the dish, adding onions, leftover vegetables, or even a fried egg on top, transforming a modest plate into a meal that felt complete and satisfying. The dish became a weekend favorite, a breakfast for dinner comfort, and a symbol of resourcefulness during times when grocery bills needed to be minimized. Beyond practicality, slab bacon and fried potatoes carried deep emotional resonance. It represented mornings filled with sizzling sounds, kitchens buzzing with conversation, and children learning that even the simplest meals could be rich with flavor, memory, and love. Every crisp edge of bacon, every golden slice of potato, tells a story of families navigating life with creativity, care, and heart during the 1970s.